Right here? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hello.
I know.
Welcome to our NCAA semifinals press conference with Louisville. We're joined by head coach Danny Busboom Kelly and student athletes Amaya Tillman and Anna DeBeer. As a courtesy to your fellow media members, as well as the coaches and student athletes, please silence your cell phones. Please provide your name and media affiliation each time you ask a question. Recording press conference video on cell phones is prohibited. Coach, if you would please begin with an opening statement. Then we'll go to questions for the student athletes, who will depart for their next activity, and then we'll end with questions for Coach.
All right, well, thank you all for being here. It's an honor to be back in the Final Four and exciting to be in Omaha. We know that there are always great hosts here in Omaha. But just really proud of this group. I think we went through a lot of adversity to get here and had to play with a lot of fight and grit and really stay consistent, and they've really done everything that we've asked of them and more. So I'm excited that they get to show off for another match.
All right, we'll take questions now for the student athletes. Please raise your hand if you have a question. We'll bring you a microphone. Please identify yourself and your affiliation, and please identify by name who your question is for.
God, neat. I'm Lee Feinsfog from volleyballmag.com. Anna, it's obvious from the way your team plays in matches that your practices must be most intense. Can you describe what practices are like for Louisville?
Yes. One of our mottos is goofy, focused, fun this year. So I think while it is very intense and we want to make sure we're getting in a lot of work, we want to also make it fun and kind of have that laughing factor and just make sure that everyone's enjoying it. So I think we do a good job of having a mix between both, and this season especially, we have a lot of people that hold each other accountable, so we're making sure that we're taking care of business, but also in the right way. So.
Lincoln Arneal, Omaha World Hero. How does this year feel different? You made the Final Four last year. What's different about this year, and how are you approaching it?
I feel like with last year, it kind of felt like a near win in a way, even though we lost in the semis. But I think just that feeling of losing and being so close kind of has driven us this season. I mean, even with veterans like Anna and Aiko and all the upperclassmen, I feel like just having that near win has really driven us to compete even harder and push ourselves to the limits. And I mean, now we know what being in a Final Four takes and what we have to do every day to, go on to the next round.
Greg Eklund, volleyballbag.com, and this is first for Amaya and then Danny. Amaya, along those lines for you individually, how are you different as a player, even though you've had past high decorations? How are you different as a player this year? And Danny, from your perspective, how is Amaya different this year?
I would say I just really tried to work on my attacking. I've always just naturally been a good blocker, so just kind of trying to be consistent. I've really focused on that this season, being consistent and working my attacking, and just even from a leadership standpoint, we lost a lot of key players last year and just seniors in general. So working on my leadership has been a very big factor in the role I've had this year.
I would agree with Amaya on the leadership. I think she's really stepped up, and we really needed her to step up. And on the court, it's not that she's a different player, she's just in a different role, switching from M2 to M1. So we get her a lot more balls, which allows her to be more productive. But Amaya probably changed the most in the offseason from her leadership, and it's just been really cool to see her grow in that way. And she's a heck of a competitor. And, we say sometimes before matches, Amaya's not going to let us lose this. And sometimes I really feel that way. When she goes to the front row, it's like, we're going to win here.
Hello? Lee from volleyballmag.com. And Claire's not here, but can I get you to talk about her? She was really good, and this year she's been great. And what have you seen in her that's made her improve so much? And it's fair to say that we all get fooled. You look at her and she's so slight, and you think, oh, she's little out there, but she's 6 feet tall. And just anything you can offer about her.
I mean, Claire is one of the most hardworking people I know. I mean, just seeing her growth when I came in as a freshman and how much she's improved over the years, it's been really cool to see. And she's been someone who I've looked up to as being the same position as her. She's taught me a lot, and she's always coming in early to get extra reps and staying late to get even more. And that just goes to show the type of player she is. And over these past few years, she hasn't always gotten all the press and all the recognition, I think, and she deserves it completely. And this year it has been so cool to see everything that she's achieved and accomplished and whatever else she's going to achieve in this weekend. So, I mean, she's awesome.
Any other questions for the student athletes?
This is for Amaya again. Coaches like to say one match at a time, but you knew that Omaha, with its proximity to the Topeka area, is pretty convenient for your routes. How much was Omaha secretly on your mind throughout this season?
I would say definitely on and off. Like you said, it's very close to home. I mean, it's like a 2.5, 3 hour drive from my hometown, so it's going to be really nice to see all my friends and family. But yeah, definitely it's been one game at a time, but now that we're in this position, I'm just really thankful to be here, especially just kind of the nostalgia of having my COVID season here, and just being in this arena again. I think I'm getting a lot of like memories and reminiscing on the COVID year here when Kentucky won, and it'd be really cool just to see what we can do here as a Kentucky team as well.
Lincoln Arneal, Omaha World Herald. And Maya said that last year's semifinal loss really motivated the team. What does that look like? How often does that come up? And how does that manifest itself throughout the course of the past year?
I think it's always in the back of our minds, but at the very beginning of this year, we wanted to make sure that we're not comparing this year's team to last year's team, because we're a lot different this year. We've lost a few key players and working our way through all those things. So I think it's been in the back of our head this whole season, and we know what it takes to be here, like she said, and just to know that we've had the experience, we have the people, we know what it's like in a big, huge environment like it was. I mean, we said we won't flinch this year. That was our little thing. Like, once we're here, we made it this far, we're not going to flinch this year.
Hello. Okay. Going from the back of your head, I mean, is it a topic of conversation at all, or is it just a common understanding amongst the team?
I would say it's kind of a common understanding. We don't always talk about it a lot, but we know what it takes to get there, and we can't take days off, we can't take plays off. So I think it's just like a common understanding. Like, if we want to get to where we want to be at the end of the season, then that's the kind of work we have to put in each day.
Lee from Volleyball Mag again. Might ask you about the match. Can both of you players talk about both of the matches you played against them previously and what you expect tomorrow?
The Baylor and Oregon matches?
No, your matches against Pitt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's who you're playing.
Yes.
That is, yeah, right. Just
I thought you were saying the two previous ones. Pitt is obviously an awesome team, and the first go around this season, we obviously didn't play our best, and we worked through a few things, and then the second time it was senior night, and I think our team did a better job of just playing how Louisville volleyball is and taking care of business. So it's 1-1, it's split. It's going to be an awesome match, and I know they're going to want some revenge, and we also just want to make sure we're not going to lose to an ACC team to get to the finals. So I think it's going to be a battle, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, if I'm correct, I think this may be the first ACC matchup in semifinals. So just that in general is really cool to be in that position, and I really respect Pitt, but also, like Anna said, I mean, we're ready for them to come at us full force. They're going to want revenge, but we got to show them what Louisville volleyball is at the end of the day.
Time for one or two more for the athletes.
This is for Anna. Anna, your coach talked about the leadership growth of Amaya. As a player peer, do you have any examples off the top of your head from a match this season that comes to mind as an example of her leadership role this year?
I don't think I have one in particular, but just from when I was off the court and I wasn't able to play with my injury, I was able to observe a lot more, and seeing players like Amaya step up and really take charge out there. She has been so urgent, and the team always makes fun of me for saying we need to have urgency, but seeing her take charge out there and really just like having that aggressive mentality, like Danny said, you know she's going to win. You're not going to let us lose this. You can see it in her eyes. You can see it in her actions, and I think that's special. She's just really brought that out this year in her leadership.
All right, thank you, Amaya and Anna. You guys are free to go.
Thank you.
Nice
job.
Thank you.
Questions for Coach Busboom Kelly? Start up here in front.
All right, make sure this is on. Okay. Hi, Danny. Amy Just from the Lincoln Journal-Star. We talked last week about, the possibility of being back here, but now that it is a reality, what does it mean to you to be back here in a building you've won twice in your home state, probably in front of a lot of friends and family members, I would assume?
Yeah, it's pretty surreal to be back in a different role for the third time. And, when you start a season, you always want to get to the Final Four. That's your hope. But as it gets closer and closer, I think the pressure builds. And then when you have the hometown factor, it's even more pressure. So it means a lot. We're going to have tons of family, friends, and people that have become diehard Louisville fans in the building, and to be able to share that with them and them to be able to see us in person means a lot. I'm really proud of this team and our players and the way they play, and I'm excited for people that know me to witness that live.
What have your interactions been like with your friends and family who will be here tomorrow?
Just really, they're excited, and I think Nebraska not making it, they have somebody else to root for and to cheer for, and I just think they're excited and very supportive.
Lincoln O'Neill, Omaha World Herald. Danny, what did you take from last year's trip to the Final Four that you can apply or change and kind of learn from, to just whether it be intensity or game management or just logistics? What can you learn from last year to apply to this trip?
Yeah, a huge thing is probably logistics. And, last year we were really just excited to be in Columbus, and it was the school's first Final Four. The ACC hasn't been to a Final Four in a long time, so there was just felt like a lot of breaking barriers. And this year, we understand what it's like today, the hoopla, the open practice, everything we have to do. I think our players are in a better mental space because they know what's coming and they're not going to get overwhelmed by it. So as mainly the logistics, but I do think just having experience is huge. We return a huge core that was here last year and got to feel it. I also think playing at the Yum was huge. I mean, that was a huge crowd, a huge arena. The big scoreboard, a different feeling, very similar to this arena.
Good. Lee from volleyballmag.com. Danny, with you and your coaches, what is their specific breakdowns of who does what? Like, what does Todd do? What does Dan do? What do you do? And not necessarily, I mean, the whole big picture, and then match prep as well, if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, I train the setters and run the offense, and Dan trains the middles, and he runs the defense, and Todd trains the outsides, and then he calls the serving zones and breaks down their servers and our servers and where we want to serve. And our volunteer, Parker McKesh, he spends a lot of time with the liberos. That's really how we break it down from a staff standpoint. And game prep, it's those same things. I'll prep what do we want to do offensively, Dan will prep defense, and Todd will prep serving.
Okay, if I can ask you the same question as Anna about Claire, the way she's exploded this year from becoming like a really good player to a great player, and what you saw along the way in the last year.
Man, I feel like I've been asked that a lot this year, and there's always there's not enough to say, or there's not enough words to express what she's done, because it really is unbelievable. At one point, as a freshman, she wanted to quit volleyball, and so you look back at that, and you're like, I can't believe we were from there to the ACC Player of the Year and a first-team All-American, and she's just improved so much. She's really just allowed the love of the game to show in her play. She cares a lot about her team and the University of Louisville, and it makes me emotional just because it's really special what she's done this year, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, Coach. So 2006, you're a senior here, playing for a national championship. Can you talk about your personal journey over the last 16 years? As a coach, but
16,
also,
wow, okay.
I know it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but
Well, that's a lot to think about.
But the way you've grown as a coach, but also the way the sport's grown, and the fact, like you said, now 2 years in a row, 2 ACC teams here. If you could sort of those two tracks, if you could talk about those.
Wow, I think I don't even know where to start. I guess as a coach, I got into coaching. I thought I had to give it a try, otherwise I'd always regret it. But then in the back of my mind, I knew once I got a coaching job, I'd probably never get out of it. But when I got offered the job at the University of Tennessee, I told my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, I'm like, hey, I took the job. And he's like, were you even going to talk to me about it? I said, well, I guess if we're serious, you can come along. And so I was pretty excited to get started. And then just being able to go to Tennessee, then to the University of Louisville, and then come back to Nebraska as an assistant. I worked for 3 very different head coaches, but I learned so much at each stop. And then being the head coach offered the job here, I knew I had a lot of weaknesses, but I knew what it took to run a great program. And so I just feel like just being very authentic and true to who I was, and making sure that I made great hires and surrounded myself with great people was really important. And now just to see the sport where it is, and my first year in the ACC, we didn't have any teams ranked in the top 25. And I remember we kept winning. It's like we could not break into the top 25, but we weren't beating any ranked opponents. And so I really was starting to we need to push the ACC forward. And I've talked to Dan Fisher a few times. We need each other to be great, and we need the conference to continue to be great, because it is a great conference and a lot of young, talented coaches. And I'm pretty excited that we both made it back to the Final Four, because I think last year, there's a lot of noise, this is a one-time thing, and then for us both to do it again under completely different circumstances with completely different teams just says a lot about the growth of the sport. I also think the parity and the athletes, it's not necessarily about recruiting the best players, it's about recruiting the best team. And that's why I think you're seeing so much parity in our sport, because volleyball is the ultimate team sport.
Yeah, Danny, you touched on it a little bit with your friends and family obviously going to be cheering for you tomorrow, but what would it mean to you for the Nebraska fans, local Nebraskans, to rally behind you and your team tomorrow?
Man, we need it. I think Pitt is extremely tough to play. They always find ways to win. Obviously, they're here. I don't think anybody saw them beating Wisconsin at Wisconsin, except teams that play them every single year, multiple times. So, yeah, we not only would it just mean a lot to me, but it means a lot to our team, and we're going to need some extra momentum, and everybody knows crowds can certainly help that. So hopefully they'll be cheering for us, and they want to see a fellow Nebraskan in the finals.
Danny? Greg Eklund, volleyballmag.com. You are well schooled in the culture at Nebraska on assistant coaches who go on to become head coaches. How would you characterize the culture you're creating at Louisville, and when some of your players get to their upperclassman status, do you think to yourself, she might make a good coach eventually?
I think we have a lot of great coaches on our roster, so I hope we see some of them get into it. I think a big thing is just we talk a lot about authenticity and love for the game and making sure that we're doing what we need to be great, but we're also we're not taking ourselves too seriously, and we like to have fun. And at the end of the day, we're playing a game. This isn't life or death. And I don't know, I think with Mike Leach passing away, I was talking to our players about that and just how I always felt like he was such a great coach of emulating that, like not taking yourself too seriously and loving the game, loving what you're doing, but it is a game. And I think that makes our players play really hard and have fun while they're doing it. And, we talk about being goofy, focused, fun, and that's been a great motto for our team the last few years.
Lincoln from the World Herald. Danny, is it a blessing or is it a curse to play a team at this stage that you're so familiar with?
I've been thinking about that. I don't know. I think it goes both ways. I think it's really hard to play a team 3 times, and you almost too much, and then you might overthink some things. But it's also really nice for preparation. And okay, we've seen them do this. We kind of know what they like to do. So I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. I guess we'll find out tomorrow. But again, it was funny when they beat Wisconsin. I was like, oh my gosh, what an amazing win. And then I'm like, oh crap, well we have to play them now. So I think it goes both ways.
The players also mentioned this, the word goofy, and you mentioned it too. How does that come across? Where do you see that goofiness from your team?
For example, we have a history of starting slow this year, so we had to tell the team, if we're not first to 10, like no more TikToks. And of course they are like, no, we can't lose our TikToks. And I think Claire's always cracking jokes. If somebody's late, running late because of treatment, it's always like, who's got a joke? And Dan loves his dad jokes. He puts those on the scouting reports. So I just think it's a lot of different people kind of bring that out in each other.
Lee from Volleyball Mag, just a little bit more about the Pitt match, because these are 3 really different matches, right? Like the first one, I think I'm correct, Anna did not play.
Right.
And then the second one being at home, and she did play.
She
but
played
not,
back row, yeah.
Right, and now, so she alone, just the factor of her, but just a thought about this being 3 different matches and so different, even though it's the same opponent.
Yeah, I definitely think we played pretty poorly for a long part of the match at Pitt, and I think Pitt played pretty poorly at Louisville. So you almost kind of have to throw those out because I don't think either of us are going to play that poorly here. And having Anna back is definitely a factor, but it's not like Pitt hasn't seen her play or played against her multiple times. So I'm sure they're breaking her down, but this isn't somebody totally new. And then I think they're doing some different things in their lineup, and their rotations have gotten so much better, and they're using some depth that we haven't seen before. So they're also changing and evolving still. And I've seen their press clippings, and they don't feel like they've peaked yet. I don't think we have either. So I think it's pretty exciting to go into Thursday's match with both teams feeling that way.
We have time for a couple more.
Yeah, Coach, I know you don't want to put too much emphasis on this, but this is only the second time there have been 2 women at the Final Four. I wonder how well, I know Jennifer's out on the West Coast, but I wonder how well you know her, and what do you feel about your position as a role model for women coaches in the head coaching realm?
I don't know Jennifer too well, but I know her well enough to know that she's a great person and a great coach, and when you follow her career, it's pretty amazing. She took a sabbatical. This year, actually, when we played Boston College, she walked in, and I'm like, what is the San Diego coach doing here? Well, her daughter plays for Boston College, and it was Parents' Weekend, and she's like, I just really needed to make sure that I saw my daughter play at least once, and I thought that was a pretty amazing statement. But I don't, last year when I think I was the only female here in the Final Four, and I was like, I don't want to talk about that, and I just want to be known as a coach. And I do think having a child, and the more I've thought about it, I think it does need to be talked about. It's like, why are we talking about that in 2022, being the second time that it's happened? And it is amazing to be a mom and have a great career and be able to do what you love. And so it means a lot to show our players that they can do that, whether it's coaching or anything else, that if that's what they want, they can do it. But, I do think there's a lot of lessons, like how do you do it and how can you be successful? And hopefully I'm showing them that every day.
Final question down here.
Yeah, Amy from the Journal-Star. For the people who haven't followed along with you and your team all season long, how would you describe them, your team, and what makes you proud of them?
So many things. So I would probably describe our team as I think they love the sport and they play with so much pride. I think they all came to Louisville they're on a mission, and they came here to be on a mission, and I think that's what makes us so easy to cheer for is you see that in their play, but then they're just so great at celebrating each other. But sometimes I think great culture and great teams, it's hard to really say what you see. You just know that you love watching them. I think we're one of those teams.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
As a reminder, locker rooms are closed today. Please work with the SIDs on additional requests, and a recording of this press conference will be available in the NCAA Digital Media Hub at ncaa.veritone.com. Transcripts are provided by ASAP and will be posted shortly.